And we're live.
Hello. Welcome
Hello,
in the internet. Hello, internet.
Hello. Is there the internet?
Okay, so I will go over, as we usually do, I will go over the sound settings, as Dalton usually do. And I will see. Let's start with Alfred. Just talk.
just talking my normal voice and volume. Let's hope it doesn't overshoot. Shoot to the moon.
Florian.
Yes, hello. I'm also here. I want to speak something like blah blah blah. I don't know.
That's good. Okay. And also, is my sound good? I can hear my own sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Then that thing is done. Yeah. Are we
Very good.
Are we ready to actually be on time this time?
We are really on time this time. We are not 5 minutes late. What happened all the years?
All these years we are on time.
Yeah.
Are we have we done the Twitter and the Telegram?
Yeah, this I don't know. Let's make a quick ping to our group. Then our marketing can pick it up. Where is main group? Here. Live. Don't know if that helps anything.
Can do that and that and that and that.
All right.
And that.
Okay.
Okay. Then we can start.
Yeah, we can start.
Hello and welcome to the UbiPros Q&A. This is the 108th episode on this day of September 11th.
December.
Okay, I need to start it again. Hello and welcome to the UbiPros Q&A. This is the 108th episode of this bi-weekly show that we have. Today is September 11th. So with that, we will start this episode with 1 minute of silence for the tragedy that happened in New York 20 years ago. So here we go. Okay, so let's move on with this episode. Let's start as we always start. If you want to see your device supported, go to devices.ubuntutouch.io. If your device is not on the list, it's going to need a custom image to get it made. Every device is unique in the way that they need their own images, even though we have something called GSI, which is the generic images for Android. We still need to recompile the kernel to have some extra bits changed, to say it at least. I guess we can start.
We are looking for a good name for the GSI because it's always confused with the Android GSI. We had a few ideas already. Last one is Halium system image or also generic Halium image. So I don't know, maybe somebody has a better idea, but yeah, it's a generic something.
Yeah, generic something. Generic
GSS.
UI.
GSS.
Generic UI.
Generic UI. Well, let's just head into the news, shall we?
Yes.
Maybe Florian wants to take off the app Roundup.
Yes, thank you, Matteo. He's always looking for new apps in the App Store, in the Open Store, or for improvements there. Today, there are actually two things from David Ventura. One is WireGuard VPN. This VPN app has also a kernel implementation feature, so that will be interesting. Probably will make things more smooth for getting those connections done and kept online. Thank you for that. And also KeePass, this thing can also read entries from a KeePass file and does the usual thing. You can store your passwords there, can open URL from there and copy also the password into the clipboard. So password manager with KeePass format, quite popular out there. Yeah, thanks, David, for some work on privacy, as we are always loving to have privacy-focused things in our OS. And yeah, keep the good work going. Let's try that out. At least KeePass I can use because my job also uses KeePass in some areas. So I will install it later. Good.
Okay, I've just headed right into the focal news then.
Focal news, please. Yes.
So with focal news, has been another busy week. Weeks, actually, 2 weeks. So now we have system settings. We have a lot of squaring up of a lot of the components. To say it mildly, there's many areas that has been touched to clean it up and to rename it, and even some minor rewrites done to optimize some of the stuff too, and even to get it to build on Focal. We're also getting close to having all Ayatana indicators in. All the Ayatana indicators are now built on Focal. They test and everything is fine.
Might I add something to that? People, there are people using the PDK for that. So and testing the just to jump right in there. If you want to help out, you can use the PDK to accomplish what people are doing right now with the indicators and stuff like that. So I'm happy to see this work out so well that you can actually make the indicators work like that. So really hats off to everyone involved here.
Also, hats off to Alfred for actually making the PDK. The PDK is
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I really love the PDK. It has made my development workflow much simpler. I mean, these days I all the things that I do, I mostly test on the PDK because it's simpler. Except for Android stuff, yada yada yada. Right. But everything else, I do on the PDK these days. So as long as you get PDK set up with the WordFS, is that what it's called?
WordFS IOD or something like that. Yeah.
Then it's perfect for me. But you need a fairly new kernel to be able to do it.
Right.
Not kernel, but you need a fairly new QEMU?
Well, QEMU is already shipped with as part of the PDK, so you don't require any additional setup. But if you use it on macOS, you're using SSH to share the data. So yeah, there's two possible ways to share data between the PDK and the host system, and compiling is very easy. It just fetches it from the respective place that you configured, and it's basically done.
Well, okay, so let's move on from Focal news, and I guess Florian can take the OTA since he has been working most of that.
While our core team is still working hard to get things done for 24, of course, we also want to release updates for the current 1604 base and for all supported devices in our stable channels, which is OTA 19. Glad to say that while we had a few strange regressions in the last 2 weeks, we are now clear of that. We have fixed all the critical bugs. There were weird things inside, like suddenly trust prompts not asking anymore for permissions correctly. And then also if you switch to 2G internet speed, suddenly there wasn't any data anymore going. We fixed all of that. Also auto brightness is kind of in a usable state again. And that means the final RC has been published yesterday already. So that's on the all people that are on the RC channel now. They can expect that this will be the final image for stable, and you can start testing. I will write the call for testing these days, probably tomorrow, and post it on the forum. with the respective link to the issue tracker or to the project tracker in GitHub, where we basically need to get all the items from the QA column into the done column, so that we have verifications for all of the things that have been done. We need also, or ideally, we would need multiple confirmations for every issue. So to get a wider range of testing on more devices, please, even if somebody has already commented that it works for me and you think it's already done, grab it, test it out for you. The more positive votes we have, the better. And I expect this process to be done over the next week. I think it's not a big deal to get it done in a few days. There are not so many heavy items for testing. And then we can release probably in the usual way, either end of next week or beginning of 2 weeks, Monday then, which is basically, didn't look at the calendar before, latest September 20th, I would say. So great. And the OTR 20 is already created on our project page. I'm already excited about that. What's on the roadmap for OTR 20? That's a good question. I put some items already there, but I forgot again. Let's peek into that for a second, shall we?
So one of the things that I immediately think of is actually fixing this bug where Trustor isn't able to accept processes that are not. It isn't
Right.
child processes. It doesn't know what the child process is.
Yeah, just to give a little overview, for example, the browser, since it's a multi-process, cannot make use of the trust store right now because it cannot find out which sub-process is actually requesting the audio input for the microphone, so that you can use it in scenarios where you would like to do voice chat over the browser. And with some patches by Rachanan, this should be fixed. And I have actually tested them. They work. Just as a little quick test, I used that to actually do some voice chatting here and there. And it works pretty well. Let's just see if for OTA 20 it brings any regressions with it. But other than that, it looks good.
Yep. It looks very good code-wise too. So.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that I want to mention, actually, what will be in OTR 20, because I didn't do it for 19 now, is that we finally get the vibrations for notifications done on all the Halium 9 and 10 devices. That's some regression that wasn't that visible over the development cycles for the last months. But when I'm using our phones, then I really need vibrations on notifications sometimes, because I also sometimes have it on mute for long times. Or I'm in the public transport, I don't hear anything from my phone, and so I really rely on that. And also, if we can do it, we will get the LED permissions, or not the LED permissions actually done, but also the LED interface done for the new devices, so that finally notification LED and charging LED is working. So that's my plan for this 20. And a few other things, I'm just looking, and probably something about... there was this support for icons and 512 fixes. I don't know what that one is. We want to bring in a long requested feature that was how to say, not ignored, but left alone a bit for the last months. So we can import VPN files, actually. Not only that you set up your VPN connection interactively, but you then have a pre-configured VPN file, and you can import it, and it will be able to be added to the list of VPNs, and you can just click on it and connect. That would make things easier if you have pre-configured VPN stuff. Or you can maybe do it on your PC and just copy it on the phone, because the dialogue is quite cumbersome sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
One of the things I also see in here is some fixes by Marty to actually fix the Google education for some people, because Google has done some weird stuff with who is allowed to log in. I don't know the logic they have. Some are able to log in, and some says you need to use an external browser or stuff like that. So it's been working hard on that. So
yeah, I hope we can finally fix that Google authentication for all people, that it works again well. It was very confusing because I also have some calendars, not my main calendar, but some calendars there that I would like to sync again and so on. So yeah. Oh yes, and other things we will throw in as they come along. I'm pretty much sure we will have a good mix of features and bugs again. And we try to keep the cycle short, as we said. Better have more OTS with smaller changes than just wait forever. Let's try this for the autumn. Recharging our batteries and then go for a multi-OTS. Good. So, and then we come to the nice category that our most featured guest is Alfred these days, with experiments.
Exactly, yeah. So, my personal experiments for the last 1.5 weeks have been they've been narrowed down to one highly requested feature, and that is Miracast Support, since it provides wireless display capabilities to your phone, so that you can extend your phone to a TV set or to, for example, a computer monitor, whatever it might be, so that you can actually use the desktop mode. And I've been working on that. So a little story of my adventure here. I've been testing and implementing and testing the thing on the Pixel 3a, so Halium 9 specifically, but it could, in theory, also help on Android and Halium 7.1, where for 64 bits, there are currently a few issues. And that means it's not able to basically tell the encoder, hey, here's a new content of the screen, please encode it for me and send it over to the display. It doesn't do that right now. So I actually wrote two encoder integrations, both using Droid Media in the backend. One is using GStream and one is using Droid Media directly. And the Droid Media one actually showed that the same issue that we already had was present there. So I've narrowed down the issue, and I am planning on providing a fix as soon as possible because it's a very important feature to me, at least. And so I'm highly motivated to get this stuff done finally, but there is no ETA yet. And so yeah, it's a little odd that the encoder decides to just say, no, I don't want this frame that you gave me. But it has to do with a little mismatch in what the 64-bit rootfs and the 32-bit media process on the Halium side actually communicate over. So they cannot talk or exchange the data properly, and in simple terms. And that causes the encoder to just say, okay, no, I can't handle this. So I need to figure out a way to do this. If anybody with insights on this particular issue is willing to help here, please contact me on Telegram at fredl.me. That's FREDLDOTME. And let's get this thing fixed, because I'm pretty sure a few people would like to see this. And it could provide something. We could provide a fix for it before Ubuntu 20.04 based images are out. So that's at least my personal goal to accomplish here.
That sounds great, because we had a few people already asking about how this can be done, and we always said, yeah, you can, even if there is no display out, you can use wireless. And then people try it out, and then they're sitting in front of black screens and disappointed, right, and so on. Yeah. We even have a question for that today in our questions section where we come later. But I think that's a great thing. So fixing that in a way that it really works sustainably for at least a few years, probably, before something might break it again, would help us to make a point here. And I think from my personal experience and discussions with people that now, after these Corona times and everybody moving into hybrid work models and home office scenarios, it is even more important that you have something in your pocket that you can connect to a screen and work with that in some way. And also maybe if it's just about giving good presentations right off your phone, you go somewhere, you connect with a wireless display on a big screen or so, you can cast your screen presentation from the phone. It would be also awesome. I really hate to carry notebooks into meeting rooms these days because I always forget something. If it's just my phone that I need, that would be awesome. And I mean, the use case is really valid, and I think that the time's in our favor to have a workplace in your pocket that you can do stuff with it. And not even Android still can have those features. I mean, you can connect it to a screen, but you're still working with your apps in some way that's, in my opinion, quite weird. But yeah. Anyway, thank you. There is another experiment this week. Mario's convergence things. Basically, you're working on the same thing. What's going on these days? Everybody convergence or what?
we're complementing each other.
I mean, I'm working on a different type of convergence. So it's always this debate what convergence mean, and convergence in the sense of UbiPorts, conversion is basically be able to run or adapt on different. It's able to converge across screens, to say the marketing term.
It's not a feature. It's a property. It's part of something. It's a part of a bigger thing, like an application, or for example, for UbiPorts, Ubuntu Touch. The shell is convergent, which means it spans across multiple screen sizes from phone to desktop. And the same can be true for applications too. And just because you can, for example, use LibreOffice on the external monitor doesn't necessarily make it convergent. Convergent actually means you can use the application both on a phone and on the larger screen.
Yeah. And when he says that too, is that even though you technically can run LibreOffice on a small screen, that doesn't make it convergence either, because it has to adapt to that screen without needing modifications, basically. It's able to run on the same thing, and also automatically scale up and down as you plug in different screens and devices and stuff like that. But back to my experience things. I've been working on something called XG decoration, which is kind of a hot debate these days because the Gnome people says no, while everyone else says yes. And it is a protocol for letting the server decide if we want client-side decoration or server-side decoration. Ubuntu Touch or Lumire uses server-side decor. It uses server-side decor, and decor is basically the header line where you can scale it up and down. The reason why Lumire uses it is because we want a consistent look. We don't want fragmentation in the look of the header bars and stuff like that. And that's true for most desktop environments, except Gnome. So right now, Gnome does not support XG decoration. There is a PR up on GTK that has been there for too long. But they have implemented KDE's older implementation of basically the same XG decoration. It's an evolvement out of the KDE server decoration. But the part of what makes this difference is that XG decoration makes it so the client has to obey by the laws that the compositor sets. While the KDE one basically says that I want you to draw this, but you can draw what you want. And what Gnome did is that they said they want to draw what they want all the time, which makes apps look out of place on, like, for example, if you install gedit on Ubuntu Touch or Lumire desktop environment, it will look out of place because it has its own header bar and shadow, and then this Lumiri draws over it because it doesn't know if it should draw it or doesn't draw it. And that's what this also is supposed to fix. So both compositor and the clients know what to do, so they can adapt accordingly. Next on that, I've been working on Qtmere, cleaning up the Mir 2.0 implementation, just getting things to work. It now runs on 2.0. There's a branch up on Focal that you can try out. And this all heads into improvements in desktop. I'm now using Lumiri as my daily driver on my desktop. No, not my desktop, my laptop. And I'm dog fooding myself because I identify pain and I fix those pains. And I feel like this is a really good way of debugging, because when you get annoyed enough about a bug, you fix it. And when this is, I think Alfred can agree what I mean.
Definitely, yeah.
It's like you get annoyed enough and then you fix the damn bug. So yeah, that has been my Converge story. This is stuff I done on my quote unquote free time. Other than that, I'm doing Focal and OTA 19 and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think we can also say that we didn't do anything for external display and that stuff for a long time. So it's really legit to say, yeah, picking up those leads again, and the threads that were just disconnected after for a long time now is a good thing. Because when we have finally done 24 anyways, we wanted to focus on that things again. So already looking now what's actually missing, doing an assessment of what's broken, what needs improvement is a good thing. And if the story becomes too big, we can anyway push it on our wonderful, nice long backlog with another 400 items, but we need to prioritize it probably higher then. But yeah, thanks guys. That looks amazing, especially because I have now a phone with a display out. I'm always eager to test new stuff there. One of the things that really is interesting, I got actually to launch a few desktop apps in Libertine without crashing. Even it's supposed to not work. Like if you start Chromium or you start Visual Studio Code, yeah, there is something about Electron that doesn't work out of the box. Then Aaron gave me a tip to modify just the startup file, and that starts now, but it doesn't accept any input. So neither mouse nor keyboard clicks are being accepted by that app. I don't know why. That would be interesting. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, thanks for experiments. Shall we have a small break for our sponsors, as usual? So there is our sponsor break. Thanks to our main sponsors, Smooth, Walla, Pine64. And you can see all the other sponsors on ubibots.com/sponsors. Give them a shout out or look into that. We appreciate if you get aware of that and support the people that support us. And of course, there are a lot of other people supporting us also on Patreon and via the other platforms. And to be honest, we didn't update that list for this week, I'm afraid. So we still hope it's okay. There are people like Travis McMahon, Emolif, Scanier, Nensens Fiel, their name is always good, Dan Trevino, Daniel Franczak, Robin Hood, Laszlo Tamas, Jan Locke, Max Fiedler, Ado Thiel, Casey Lambie, Georg Thoma, Renat Mirkalev, Will Atwood, and Scott Marley. Thanks, guys. And if you want to go to donate, then if you want to donate to us, please go to ubibots.com/donate. You find all the options there that you have. LiberaPay, basically PayPal. You can also do European bank transactions via SEPA. It's also highly appreciated. And it's tax deducible in countries that have that, because we are a beneficial foundation, so probably everywhere in Europe. So thanks for your donations. We highly appreciate it right now because we need a little bit more money to finish 2004 than expected. So open your pockets, please, and $10 into Ubibots Foundation. That would be awesome from everyone. then we already funded for a little bit more time. Oh, cool. So that's with the sponsors part. And now we have a really, really cool question part this week also. Let's start with the first question from DomUPPK. UTPQ smartphones not maintained in the near future. Well, we will see. Can you clarify the future of BQ M10 HD and Full HD tablets in conjunction with the move to 2004? They are irreplaceable and far from replaceable at this stage. Basically means probably there is no substitute in any store for people. Yeah.
Right. So one of the things that is the problem with those are the fact that they have vendored, like, so when these devices were sold, Canonical decided to let the vendors of the device take handle mostly of the Android side of the code, which means that they never actually released the source code or the Android tree of said devices, which means that it is impossible for us to actually build the Android part. And this is what makes it so hard for us to actually move this further into Focal, because we want to do things like Droid Media and moving sensors and all these modifications that we want to do, and we just can't do that on these devices. Like, for example, there's no promises that we will keep around Platform API, which is what they use for media encoding and camera and those kind of stuff, which is what makes it so hard. And maybe what we should do is look into, maybe we can get some tablets ported over. Now that we have GSI, it shouldn't be. It should be simpler, since we don't have to deal with modem and stuff like that most of the time. But to find an alternative which we can port into. But of course, what we can try is actually bring them over and see if they work. But there's no promises that we actually are able to do it. It's not because we don't want to, it's because we can't. And also there will be too much work for us to do it, since we don't have the ability to just rebuild it.
What's the implication? Do we already know what's the implication of moving to systemd in our core rootfs? Is that something that the kernels will be happy with?
No.
Exactly. So I think BQ, the tablets had 3.18 already. I think it was a higher kernel. Yeah. But nevertheless, we probably need to modify kernel as well before we can start up that thing, right?
The thing is, we need some extra kernel parameters on those older kernels. Newer kernels handle that without problems, but such old kernels. But kernel isn't the problem. We can build the kernel for the BQs, but we still don't have the Android tree, and that will cause us some pain in some of the Halium side of things. Well, it's not even running Halium, which is the problem.
Yeah, and I just can quote Amy here from live chat. As always, we have that option.
Sure, we can always have some dirty hacks, but at that point, we are a small team, and we need to weigh in the benefit of should we move into the future and focus on the future, or should we stay as we do and just let our train go and never go anywhere. And for us, we also need to move forward. We need the train going, and we'll try our best to keep the things supported. But they are starting to get pretty old now. I think they are over 5 years old, something like that. They're more than 5 years old.
Yeah.
But the problem is not really on us. The problem is on being able to actually move them forward. And we also been talking about dropping the UBP-5.1, which is the pre-Halium tree, since this also doesn't have all these Android, these Halium specific things that we use today, like media, yada yada yada, and that also makes it harder for us to justify bringing something in that definitely we aren't able to rebuild. But as a community, we are always also happy if someone else wants to take on and move it forward. But as a core team, we don't have enough workforce. If we had a limited money, we could hire limited people and then we could do it. But we don't have a limited money. We need to be in budget, and in that budget, it's already a lot of things we need to do, and that's why we need to focus on moving forward and getting focal in, and also getting into newer devices. We need more horsepower, more. Like one thing that's always a problem with older devices is actually getting it, so we get newer people. So people can just buy a device, but getting a BQ M10 is pretty much impossible. There are some on eBay randomly popping up, but that's I haven't seen one in forever.
I mean, it's interesting also when we talk now with our partner, HoloWeltSysteme, that does Vollaphone and Vollaphone X. So Vollaphone actually places second on our push server stats, which was an amazing journey in now approximately 1 year. That phone went up so far because you could buy it in the store with pre-installed Ubuntu Touch. And now if I look at the stats for the Vollaphone X, that's also quite moving already forward. So people really look for something that they can buy off the shelf without having to deal with unlocking it, flashing it, buying a used device maybe that has some pre-owned problems. At least the battery is always under risk. I have a few devices here on my table for porting where the battery isn't good at all. I just bought them very cheaply from somebody as pre-owned, which is basically okay for porting and for my limited use case, maybe for, giving it to someone that for testing out UT. But I can understand everyone that says I want to have a new device, to have just something where I have a warranty, where I have a battery that's from factory and so on. So we see a tendency that devices that you can buy with pre-installed OS are actually being favored over ones where you have to fiddle yourself. Anyways, I think nothing is set in stone. We will get there when we get there, and we will still keep at least the old image online, so you can run it with 1604 for a limited amount of time. But of course, if there is something like a newer tablet that has a little bit more horsepower, maybe that works the same, I would suggest thinking about moving off that old thing. Also because there are no security updates for the old kernel, we cannot really bring anything there. We have again heard about some Bluetooth issues where there are some exploits going around. We really do not want our user base to have to stick on the old hardware forever just because we are not aiming for new stuff. We are aiming for new stuff, but with tablets it's really hard to find something reasonable.
I would like to point out one thing though, and regarding old versus new devices, just to add to Marius's point. The fact is that seeing from the porting over to Android 9, for example, and even with Halium 7, we noticed that there are a few things that are better on those kinds of, we can change the Droid media ourselves, we can contribute, we can make it work better, compared to the old way that it's basically trying to force old hardware into a new system. And for example, with System D, for those that didn't notice yet or didn't know about it yet, there are certain limitations about the kernel that cannot be fixed without changing anything on the device side. And seeing the Android 9 world and seeing the Halium 7 world is pretty nice. It actually provides us a look into the future where we can work on the system while also providing compatibility to sharing workload with Sailfish OS people, for example, because they do porting a lot. We do a lot of porting, and sharing that workload and using common libraries from them, and maybe them using a few things from us, makes it easier for us to maintain that thing versus maintaining everything ourselves. So, for example, the platform API is one thing that pops up there, and just to keep it short.
Yeah. And also, one thing to add to that is also, we should also prioritize moving forward and not lagging behind too much, because Android is moving fast. It is a fast-moving target, and we need to follow up. If we drop behind far enough, it will take a lot of work to actually move forward. So we would rather like use our effort and following Android instead of going back in time and doing Android. I think even some of the BQ devices uses Android 4.1 or 4.4, which is over 10 years now. Is it? Yeah, I think so. So we do need to take that into consideration. And one point that the comments bring out here too is that the problem with all devices is getting them to work. Most have broken parts, ESP, the Nexus 4 and 5, and also buying things from China, which is a clone, sometimes does not work, and just boot loops. So it's hard to get the devices. But also one thing I want to mention, we have supported these devices long after what the manufacturer supported them. Manufacturer these days support them for 1-2 years. Not even that. Some are just supported for 1 year with security patches and then gives up. No more features, no more Android updates. Some of the higher end devices have longer, but they usually don't do it for long. We have done it for many years, and that is, we are doing a great impact on all the devices, but we need to think future.
Yeah. And also that some of the devices, they have no LTE, no 4G. That's also a problem that will become apparent as soon as more providers, more carriers will turn off actually 3G. The devices will fall back to 2G speed only and make them basically unusable for many mobile scenarios. So I can just give the recommendation, every user that has a 3G only phone, think about it in the next year or so if you want to transition to something with 4G, because it's just like, we cannot change the world,
and one thing when you're in on the cell tower is that the world is also moving to 5G. Yes. And to these days, we don't have 5G support. And many people say that it's no point of us supporting it. But the earlier we support it, the more ready we are once that switch happens. Because that switch will happen sooner or later. 4G isn't going anytime soon. But if we are early, we are able to handle that situation and not, it's as I always say, work up the stairs instead of jumping up the stairs.
Exactly. So, that's one of the best quotes we ever had in the whole project. Yeah, we don't run up the stairs, we walk up the stairs because we don't want to trip. Yeah. All right, let's keep it there because we have a huge bunch of other questions in front of us. And the next one is a super question again. And the user is called 1000 Topics. And I like 1000 Topics because this question is literally 1000 topics and we have taken out a few. No, actually not. It's the whole block here that he asked and we will try to answer as much as possible. Let's see what we can do. So 1000 Topics wants to know, question 1, what would you do with 1 billion euros? Can you do a breakdown of that? Poof. 1 billion euros? I think we will take over world domination, right?
My personally, just because I can, when I have $1 billion, this is for myself. I would buy a Tesla and install Ubuntu Touch on it because I can.
All right.
No, that was a joke. So with $1 billion, I would definitely hire more people to actually work on it full time, improving. The first thing I would say to the team is like, hey, fix the stability, fix everything. Everything needs to be 100% polished. and then
Exactly.
and then port it to every device known to man and support it for a long time. Bring in new stuff, bring in stuff that hasn't been done before, build the perfect device that
Actually, yes. I think it should go to hardware development, more or less, because that's where really you can burn money as easy as, I don't know, paper. In hardware development, I think if you want to do it these days, there are a lot of things involved that you need to do. And we have seen that from our hardware partners, actually, that hardware isn't easy. Software is easier than hardware. No, it's clear, but hardware can be really hard. And if you look at what happened in processes where startups try to develop a new device, that often failed. I don't want to put any names now out, but we all know that good intentions can lead to really bad results in a matter of a few years. And then you have burned all your money. You have customers that are waiting your wonderful new device, and you cannot give them what they initially thought it will be. So I think 1 billion, let's split it up in chunks, but let's give 500 million to hardware development of the perfect device and a station dock, of course.
Yeah, a station dock, for sure.
All right, next question. Do we plan to do a campaign, Paul, or something for us, the users, to vote for the apps that we need? Don't dream much, wait for the most. Because they found a page on the Purism homepage where they are actually saying fund your app, which is a link where you can go. And then there are some apps, and you can also suggest apps that are not on the list, and then vote for these apps to be developed in first place, and also give some donation already for development of that thing. Now the question is, are we going to do a campaign like that? I don't think we would do something like that, in my opinion, because letting users vote for their favorite apps and they need, and we should develop them, is a little bit blurring what's actually behind that. Because if everyone now votes for Facebook or for WhatsApp, well, we cannot do that. Even if we have all the money, we need to support of those companies. So for me, it's a little bit raising false hopes. Like, for example, I looked on the page before, and one of the top rated apps in need, sort of the top one seems to be Firefox. I think at some point we can handle Firefox. We don't need much of a campaign and donations here. We will get there, people. No worries. But the next one that I see is Signal. So we already discussed it tons of times. What's wrong with the approach here, that we cannot get a native Signal app into our store. Of course, native is not possible. But on the other hand, you could make it like with Teleports that develop their own app. Well, Signal doesn't want to cooperate with us on that one. So no matter how much money you throw into that pot, there will be no Signal app without the support of Signal. There is, of course, limited availability of the open APIs that OpenWhisper system has, and we have the wonderful Axolotl app, and a big shout out to Aaron and the others. They are really doing their best to make it as much compatible and as good as they can, but a native Signal app, it will not be. So I think rather than doing this, I have a much bigger hope that finally our Waydroid project, formerly Andbox 2.0, will pull us out of the mud here, because then you can just install the native Signal app and that's fine.
One thing I also want to bring in there, I also feel like it would be a better approach to actually support the developers that develop these apps instead of I don't see why we would. We are responsible for the operating system. We should make that better. We shouldn't also make all the apps. I think that's not the road that we want to go. We want to be an open platform, and we don't want to build everything. So that's why I think it would be better for letting those money. For example, if you want a Signal app, you would donate to Axolotl, and if you want Firefox, you would donate to Mozilla and say that this money goes to that XYZ. And stuff like that.
Right. Third question. We know people from other from other operating systems that are also doing mobile stuff, like OSs for PinePhone. Yes, we know people from Postmarket, from KDE, from Manjaro guys, from everywhere around that ecosystem. So which of those we would like to have on Ubuntu Touch, and do we know if they want some of our apps in their operating systems? And basically the point of that question is, have you thought about cross-cooperation importing apps between mobile operating systems? Oh yes. Well,
we are doing
we
it.
thought about it, and we are actually doing it in some way. Like, I just found interesting news on this Purism page that people are requesting Pure Maps to be one of the top 5 apps they want on the Librem 5. Luckily, we can say we have already Pure Maps, and it's even cross distro or cross OS kind of thingy. Well, yeah. What else? I think we thought about cross cooperation a lot, right?
Well, we are having a lot of configurations. English. We work together. We work together with the KDE people a lot on this, and we have even been on sprint summits in Berlin together with them a whole week and sit together and work together. So a lot of stuff is happening there. It's happening slowly because of our cute version, yada yada yada. But we are getting closer to that. But there's also this problem of toolkit. There is certain desktop environment or certain people that don't want to have the Qt apps that we make, and we rather create their own in GTK because they don't want Qt, and that is a general problem in Linux. It's not a problem for mobile Linux. It's just something that happens in all of Linux. Is that I don't want your app because it's written in XYZ. It needs to be written in XYZ because I want it because. And
well, there is a certain point to be made there, though, and that is the thing is with multiple mobile operating systems, whatever you might want to call them, even though they share the same kernel, the same C library, and stuff like that, they might provide a different experience. And this experience spans across a multitude of different things on the phone. Like, for example, we on Ubuntu Touch, we have this trust prompt integration, which other applications just don't have, especially if they're using Wayland, especially if they're using GTK or stuff like that. They might not integrate as well currently, status quo, of course, with the system. So there are certain limitations regarding using one toolkit over the other. And also, before I stop interrupting Marius, there is also something to be said about the fact that, for example, Elementary OS on the desktop, they see themselves as an operating system standing on their own feet. They might be using Linux, they might be using GTK, but their applications follow a certain human interface guideline. They follow certain aspects that make a cohesive experience so that every application feels the same, that looks the same. They have their own store where you can download applications. And it's not too different from Ubuntu Touch in that sense. We're doing quite the same thing here. It's just that just because you can, in certain scenarios, use KDE applications on a Gnome desktop or vice versa, doesn't mean that it provides the best experience. And for that, I mean, I have the utmost of respect for all the projects that are involved here, Plasma Mobile and etc. But certain applications, depending on how they integrate with one platform, might not translate over well to another one, and that's a problem here.
Right. So basically, the problem is not that. The problem is more that we need a better way to work. For us to work together, we need a way to bridge the gaps and the holes and stuff like that. But in general, Linux has I would say problem because we don't have the man force to make every app, and when we are redoing a lot of the same things. So in my opinion, it's not well unified. It's basically so to sum it up, it's like we are creating a lot of fragmentations because of that, but we are also creating freedom, and you're creating the choose. You can choose whatever you want and stuff like that. But in my opinion, what we should do is allow the user to decide what they want to run. If they want to run a KDE app on GNOME, sure. Why would we stop it? And that is stuff that is happening in the Linux community. They are actively trying to stop the cooperation between each app and building their own APIs around that and that. And I can say that Ubuntu Touch is a victim of this to some degree, but we are working to use more upstream APIs and stuff like that. But
especially just to jump in here, one thing that a lot of people miss here is that we as developers, as different projects, work pretty well together. I mean, Rodney, for example, just mentioned that Plasma uses our keyboard, for example, and we use some Plasma or Sailfish OS stuff. So there is shared workload, and we are working together. It's just that there are some people who just don't agree with everything, and they just bash on the other projects, and that's just not the reality. But maybe I'm digressing here too much.
One small thing maybe to the thing of unified look and feel. I don't think also that it's necessarily a needed condition that everything looks and feels the same on such an operating system. By the time that you grow it out into something that is widely accepted, that's also impossible, because we can also only keep our hands over the core apps, and we can dictate what's happening there. We are not going to do store reviews like iOS, for example, that could just catch bad UX or bad design. We don't want to do this, because that's dictating a design that's limiting the freedom, what Mario said, and that's also not where we think that we want to go. I think also that not even companies like Microsoft have this under control, because in my day job I'm doing a lot with Windows, of course. Now, after you have seen Windows 8, Windows 10, it becomes more and more apparent that some things do not look like Windows anymore, because not all the software companies were jumping on the redesign trends that Microsoft tried to impose. So starting with Windows 7 already, but now after 8 and 10, I can say if you're now on a Windows desktop, it's a mixture of UX already between what Microsoft wants to have, with all the square tiles, with that limited design, with all the things that look like it's a phone or it's a mobile device, and convergence, blah, blah, blah. And then you install something that is a really old application around for 10 or 15 years. It looks entirely different. And it's okay. Everybody's fine with that. Just on our platforms, people ask, oh, well, why the apps look so different? Well, we are not Android, we're not iOS, we're not streamlining that out of the box. We're just giving more freedom here. Anyways,
and also, quick point.
Final point, and then we have to move on. Yeah.
Final point is that Android has this problem too, though. It's we have different apps looking the same, but that's not what point I wanted to make. The point is that we need to find the balance between, because we really want, as Alfred said, we really want to create a good user experience, but we also don't want to take away the freedom to run whatever you want. So like, I would say doing a mix between what Android and Apple is doing is probably the sweet spot, because you want to create the simple user face that so people can just pick it up and it just works and everything is hunky-dory. But you also want to give them freedom to do whatever they want if they decide, if they want to, because many people don't care. Many people just want to pick up a phone and download an app and it should just work. And some people want to run whatever they want, and that's something we as developers should respect both of them. We shouldn't imply one of the other. What we don't value freedom more than we value consistent user experience.
Yeah, and the first steps are actually done to make Wayland applications work better on Lumiri. So it is an accomplishable goal. It's just that we need people working on it, and we need people who actually think, yeah, I want a GTK application on my phone. Let me just do it. If they want to do it, they're more than welcome to do so. But yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I want to bring up a point that Rodney said here too, is that I respect your choice to break your phone, but I don't have to support you doing it. Basically, yeah, because we don't have the power to actually also help everyone that has these problems on XYZ. So it is a good point that he makes, because it is impossible to support everything with the manpower you have, because there's a lot of testing, and that's why usually app that is designed for one platform works better, because it tested a lot on that platform. So yeah, just a point. But I think I think we should speed run the next questions, because we're already on the hour.
So we are gonna move over to the actually next question from Bolly, and it's also easily answered. Hello, Duo. How do you manage the UBOS Foundation Board of Trustees membership application? Among the benefits there is that you get voting rights. We haven't received any reply to the email sent for more than 2 weeks. Should we be concerned? No, please don't be concerned. There is a backlog of applications, and we're trying to catch up on all of them. Just also that some people are still having late summer holidays, and we will ramp it up in the next weeks.
Yep.
Next question, Gurgana. So what's the progress on the Volaphone, and if the X is specific or same as the Classic? If they are two completely different phones, I mean about programming design. Well, basically, Volaphone and Volaphone X are very similar. There are small subtle differences in hardware, and of course the Volaphone X has the bigger battery and is the rugged device and so on. But they're astonishingly, surprisingly equal when it comes to what works and what doesn't. Which is basically that almost everything works. We just, as we spoke, let's say half an hour ago, we merged the Volaphone X into the devices page. So you can now go to devices Ubuntu Touch IO and see the specs of the Volaphone and what works and what doesn't, and you can compare it with. So again, you can see now both devices, Volaphone and Volaphone X on the devices page, and you can compare them. And the next question for Alfred from Ruben.
Right.
You want to read it?
Yeah. So since the update to 16.04, that Ubuntu Touch has lost one of the key features, and that is convergence, being able to connect to a wireless display or using Slim port. Do you intend to fix that? But more the ability to connect to wireless display, the only device still able to do that is the Fairphone 2. Well, because of the Miracast experiments that I've been doing, it turns out there are reasons for it not working on newer devices. But for the OnePlus One, for example, it did not get lost during the 16.04 transition, right? And it still works. So it is a problem with 64-bit and 32-bit mismatches here, and both expectations matching up properly. So it is on my personal roadmap. I'm not sure when I'm going to fix that properly, but I certainly plan to or intend to fix that soonish, as soon as possible, basically.
Right. I will hop over to the next question then. The next question is from Luke. What benefits do you expect for convergence and Waydroid side from the adaptation of 2004 as base for Ubuntu Touch? Is there any particular feature we can wait for? I mean, you need to wait for every feature, I guess, in theory. But is there anything we should be especially excited for? So for the Waydroid side, definitely is the Wayland improved Wayland support. There's a lot of things that are changed in the Wayland protocol, yada yada yada. So Wayland is definitely one thing that fits in here, and it also fits in for convergence in one way, is that you can be able to run Wayland apps. But I think what you mean with convergence in this sense is the ability to plug it in and get a desktop mode, not the type that we talked about earlier. And for that, there's definitely improvements that you can actually run Firefox and stuff like that on these phones when you connect them to external display. That will definitely be improved. There's also, for some, if you are a Linux geek, to actually have systemd support, it's also pretty nice. There's also the whole security, you update the security and all that. But don't expect anything like magical new to come in the user interface type things, because we are not soon. But we are the base will look pretty much the same, at least the first versions and stuff like that, for the update itself. But underneath, there's a lot of things changed. But you shouldn't notice any user experience differences.
There's one thing I would like to add there, and that is it also gives us the ability to implement, for example, I've talked with a few people about how to implement background services for applications, and systemd certainly gives us a few very nice features that allow you to basically run background services, pause them when they're not needed, save battery, while still providing a good split between battery saving and background activity. And for that, it's easier to use systemd, and that's something that I'm looking forward to very much.
And also on that point, it's easier with systemd to actually do resource management, and you can allow different type of CPU scheduling on different applications and all that, and also prioritize one background services, only to run on little cores and features like that. I'm not sure if that features in 24, but it definitely is in newer version of systemd.
All right.
Okay.
You wanted to have one more minute?
I wanted to actually give some quick points that I forgot in the news about the device page. I have been pushing some pull requests through there to update some of the points system so they more reflects real world. So as you can see now that like the Pixel 3 has got a pretty high score now because it emphasizes on the important things. 3A, the Pixel 3A. So that's just a minor change, and Capsia has done amazing work on the device page. So I truly am happy about the device page. The things that I do is minor, but he really has done most of the work. So okay,
great.
So let's go to the outro, shall we?
Shall we? Yes. Sorry, live chat. There are some questions popping up, but we are already over the hour, and we want to keep it sharp and crisp. You can post those questions, of course, for the next Q&A in 2 weeks, if you like, in our forum. And of course, if you want to see if your device is supported, go to that devices.ubuntu-touch.io page that we just mentioned. If it's not on that list, it needs to a custom image, as Mario said already at the beginning, and you can also try to port your own device. We have a porting documentation at docs.ubivox.com/porting. We have a porting channel. We have a lot of resources there. We also sometimes don't know how to port your device, so please try to learn it and not just copy paste from other devices. That might go up in flames. Okay, that's not true actually. But it would be interesting if somebody has destroyed their device by just porting it to Ubuntu Touch. It would make a super story for us. You can find us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, PixelFed, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Instagram, Telegram, News, Matrix News. And in most cases, the name there is always /ureports, except for Mastodon, where it's @ureports on the framapiaf.org server. And on LinkedIn, we are actually ubiports_foundation. I don't know why this happened. You can chat with us on Matrix, in the forums, and in Telegram, in our main channel. I guess you all know that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And we are glad to have another wonderful QA 108. It's a really huge number now. I think that's it. Thanks everyone. Have a good time. See you in 2 weeks, maybe, probably, whatsoever. And Please help testing the RC candidate for OTN 19 next week. It's already there. You can switch to the RC channel and start doing whatever you want to do. Cool. Thanks for the smileys and hearts, Marius. Interesting punchline there at the end. Yeah. All right. Have a good one, everyone. And
see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.